Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Waypoint. It's that time already, can you believe it? Today we are returning to Mario Kart Wii. Well, I say returning, I've actually not emulated it since my old PC died. This is just the second half of a recording from a few weeks ago. Speaking of emulation, sadly my PS2 save files didn't survive the trip from my old PC to my new PC, which is weird because my PSP saves did, and I haven't tried every, emulator I've got, but it seems to be the case that most of the saves have survived, but for some reason, I don't know what's going on with the PS2 memory card situation, but those saves are dead, which means I didn't really feel like redoing a bunch of gameplay from the games I'd already been playing recently, so I decided instead to pick up another one of my favourite childhood games, Road Trip Adventure, and you may have already seen that video pop up on the channel. The reason I mention it is to basically beg people to go and watch it, because it's one of those games which I've kind of always wanted to make video content about at some point, because I consider it one of my favourite PS2 games. Like, I don't think it would necessarily hold up on its own nowadays as like a brand new game or anything, but it's got a certain charm to it. Like, it's not exactly the best racing game in the world, but just this is a RPG basically, as well. So like you're doing, it's not exactly quests, but you're doing tasks for people, and you're earning money, and you're getting new parts and stuff, and you're exploring the world, and of course you're racing as well, and it's just such a fun little game. I put it in the same category as Fur Fighters in that it's a really good game which I never hear anyone talk about. It just did not make it to the annals of gaming history, so I've been really excited to actually show that game off, and it's nice that I have the ability to do that now. One of the reasons it sprang to mind as well is because Game Grumps played a predecessor to that game that I didn't know existed. And by that I don't mean that I didn't know about the Koro Q franchise, because for those of you who don't know, Road Trip Adventure is also known as Koro Q HQ2, I believe, which, the 2 should really have given it away, but basically it's this Japanese racing series. And I didn't know that there was a prequel to the open world concept, and I don't know if they're going to keep playing that game, but I definitely want to check that game out at some point, because it's got like some of the same sound effects and everything, and you can absolutely see that Road Trip Adventure is like a direct sequel to it in terms of game design. It's fascinating to me. If you have ever had an obscure childhood favourite game that you didn't know had a prequel or a sequel, and then you see it for the first time, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that it's fascinating, because it's like, it's almost something super familiar and personal to you, but seen through fresh eyes, because it's a different version of that thing. And I hope everyone gets the opportunity to experience something like that. It's the same way I feel about, for instance, playing like the Lego Star Wars DS port, because I'd never played that before, but was obviously super well acquainted with the original game. But yeah, that leads me to my next point, which is I decided to try and emulate Penny Racers again, the PS1 game, which is basically Koro Q 1, I believe, like the original Koro Q game. We got it branded here as Penny Racers, and I played that as a kid too. And for some reason I'm having trouble emulating it this time around, and I don't understand, because obviously the sequel on PS2 is a harder console to emulate, and it would take more power to emulate it and whatever, but I can emulate that just fine. But for some reason I cannot figure out the settings I had for EPSXE the first time around, because now whenever I try and emulate Penny Racers, no matter what resolution, no matter what settings, I always have texture tearing. And also, like, when I try and run it at higher settings, like upscaling it to higher resolutions and stuff, I get massive drops in frame rate too, which is something that, again, doesn't happen when I try to emulate a much harder to emulate PS2 game. So I don't really know what I'm doing wrong there, but given that I was just going to play that one evening because I felt too tired to record anything in Road Trip Adventure, I don't think it's too big of a deal. This is also kind of making me want to do kind of a deep dive on the Koro Q series in general, because there's a bunch of games I've never played. I know there's kind of like this open world Koro Q game on PS2, but it's a lot more scaled back, and it's like clearly not made by the same people, or it's not made to the same design document. It's like a tiny town that you get to roam around in. It's nothing like Road Trip Adventure. And there's also one called Gadget Racers. I seem to remember not enjoying that game very much. I think that's just a racing game. But yeah, in general, just re-exploring the gaming history as I've been doing for the last year or so, off and on. I also resubscribed to WoW, and I don't think I did that purely this week, but I forgot to talk about it last week, so we're talking about it this week. Just to remember where we left off in terms of WoW, Dragonflight is currently being lauded as one of the quote-unquote good expansions, the first one we've had since Legion, all those years back. And I loved Legion, and I played it during BFA and through Shadowlands as well, and I've always kind of been a player who plays for a few months at a time and then stops playing for another few months. I never say like I'm quitting and I'm never coming back, because I know I will. But for some reason, with Dragonflight's endgame, which everyone's loving, when I hit it, I just... Oh, right, yeah, I forgot about this. I was going to cut this out, but fuck it, you can see it. I tried to rebind some of my controls because I kept accidentally clicking in the left stick and opening the home menu. But yeah, for some reason, I just did not jive with the endgame of Dragonflight, and I kind of put that down to me having played a lot of the final patch of Shadowlands, so maybe I was just burnt out with WoW, but it's been a few months. And as you saw at the start of the last weekly Waypoint, I wanted to get back in and run around and be able to play it at 60 frames a second, because another thing that drove me away from the game was the dips in frame rate I was having. Well, it's been a week since then, and I don't know, man. I'm still not feeling it. And I have a new theory as to why. I think I've spent too much time in Final Fantasy XIV now. Like, don't get me wrong, I had already spent lots of time in Final Fantasy XIV since about midway through Shadowlands. Sorry, Shadowlands, Shadowkeep, Shadowbringers. There's too many Shadow expansions in MMOs. Doesn't help either that they all came out right around the same time. Oh, by the way, DK Summit. This is being added to the next phase of NSO tracks, so that's pretty cool. Didn't know that when I recorded this. Anyway, this isn't me saying that Final Fantasy XIV is a better game, by the way. It does things better, WoW does some things better, they're both really good games. However, I was sinking my teeth into a bunch of side quests which I had not done yet, for various reasons. I was like, well, now's the time to get my reputation up and stuff, and really engage in the endgame before they start rolling out the patches and I fall far behind, right? So I was doing this side quest chain, and I forget the specifics of it, but basically it was enter this camp full of mobs, and I think a large part of a problem here as well is that I'm still quite undergeared for max level content, and you're supposed to be for a while because, you know, I haven't done much max level content. But the mobs are all very tough to kill. I'm spending, I mean, I didn't time it, so I'm not going to say how long I spent, but it feels like I'm spending a sizable portion of time per enemy, and if I pull more than 2, it's the end for me. And they're all pretty densely packed, and they like to wander around and just generally ruin your day, right? WoW's been designed like this for years now. It's something that gets frustrating sometimes, so that frustration is exacerbated when I'm also realizing that I'm not jiving with just how the quests are designed. And this isn't a Dragonflight issue, this is my big revelation here. I think this is a WoW issue, and it's never bothered me until now. But I'm going out killing these dudes, and then I get to them, and they're like, oh, there's this barrier we need to get past. Could you go back and kill a bunch more dudes to get these regents for us to lower the barrier so we can continue? And I look back, and these dudes are interspersed amongst the previous dudes, which I just spent ages avoiding and killing. And I'm like, god damn it. So I go back and I kill all of them, and I, you know, pull a few extra unnecessary enemies along the way, and it takes a bit longer than I would like it to. And then they're like, okay, now we can continue through into this cavern and continue the story. And I'm just like, why did that quest exist? What purpose did it serve? It's a max level quest, so it's not there to give me XP. It didn't reward reputation. It was literally just there to elongate the side quest chain. Like, they need to have an arbitrary amount of quests in that chain. And I thought about how Final Fantasy XIV does things, and in Final Fantasy XIV, story content is actually fairly rarely, you know, has you going out and killing enemies, and you don't really notice it because you're so immersed in the story content. But still, I feel like, I mean, I'm sure Final Fantasy XIV has a few filler quests here and there, right? It's not perfect, but it's not designed in the same way WoW is. It doesn't feel like it's trying to hit a quota, and I think that is, when I realised that, that was bugging me about WoW when it never had before, I realised that I think Final Fantasy XIV has changed what I expect out of an MMO, and honestly I'm concerned for my appreciation of max level World of Warcraft content now going forwards. Again though, maybe I'm just still burnt out, I don't know. Anyway, another thing I've been doing a lot this weekend is playing Halo Infinite. I mentioned last week that on PC arenas were really sweaty. Well, I've actually had some really good arena games on PC recently, so I don't know if it's just because I had yet to grow accustomed to that input method again of mouse and keyboard, or if my hidden MMR rating or whatever had readjusted based on my previous games because I don't do as well on mouse and keyboard or something, or whether that's just how those games happen to go. But I'm no longer cursing. Every time I play Halo Infinite, I'm actually having a wonderful time, and I'm really excited for Season 3. It's going to be a fun time. I also played a bunch more Fortnite with Reese and Molly, which was fun. I'm so far behind on Fortnite videos. I need to make, especially since it's going to be Dimension Jam content. The decision I've made is that the next Fortnite video on this channel is going to be the last, because it's going to contain a message telling you to go and subscribe to Dimension Jam for future Fortnite content. But god, I must be like 3 or 4 videos behind at this point. I think what I'm going to do for the rest of my day, I've been meaning to get into Diablo 3 because the newest season is pretty unique in terms of what it offers, and it's kind of like the last hurrah before Diablo 4. I just couldn't decide if I wanted to continue my PC account or really kick off my Xbox account, because I got the Diablo 2 and 3 bundle a while back. I think I probably mentioned it on here. But sometimes I boot up Diablo 3 and have a wonderful time for ages, and then sometimes I boot up Diablo 3 and wonder why I wanted to play this game and I get bored playing it immediately. So I think a new season will probably be a good idea for a final hurrah to get back into the game. I record these on a Sunday, so if I've already tweeted about my time in Diablo 3 or something, please don't be confused. But oh my god, I'm so looking forward to Diablo 4. You get a little wolf on your back, and also I'll be able to play it on PC now, which is pretty cool. That's not like a huge benefit for me because I know how good it plays on console. I mean, I'm about to go and play Diablo 3 on console. I don't know if I actually mentioned that. That was my decision in the end. But it's nice knowing that I will be able to play it on PC all the same. I mean, I'm assuming I will. I have a 3060, and I would be very surprised if I had trouble running Diablo 4, put it that way, no matter how pretty it looks right now. But I mean, they're doing an open beta, so that's good. What isn't good is Yoshi right now. Oh my god, I really wanted to keep this recording for a future use in a weekly waypoint like I've just used now, because of this. Like, both him getting squished at the end of DK Summit and just his depression here, both absolute moods. Anyway, while Yoshi pines because I didn't even hit the top 3 here because Mario Kart Wii is brutal, I'm going to depart. Thank you for watching.